Hi, my name is Judy Ochollah, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Welcome to Sheria.
My name is Maina, advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Welcome to Sheria. Sheria is a platform where we educate the common mwananchi on the law with the aims to equip and empower you. Karibu sana. So today we're going to continue with the different ways you can register your business. Just to do a small recap, we talked about several ways how you can register your business. Number one, as a sole proprietorship. That is the kiosk we see out there. The second one is a partnership, and we divided partnerships into two. There's a general partnership, and then there is the limited liability partnership. We have the LLP abbreviations at the end of the name. So what is the difference? Number one, the partnership, the general partnership, does not have limited liability. However, the limited liability partnership does. Just to expound a bit on the liability aspect, maybe Judy, you can help us?
So this term liability, simply put, is the extent you can be found liable for the loans or for the money that you're taking. So like you have explained, limited liability, it means even if the company is wound up, you will not be found liable. In short, wata kukujia ukwambie, pay us our debts or pay all these debts. So it is limited to a certain extent. So that is what it means, limited liability. Now let me take it now when it comes to companies, which we are expounding on today. So when it comes to company, we also have limited liability. And we said limited liability in a company is where the law will limit how much or to what extent the loans you'll pay in the event that the company is being wound up. So there are two ways you can protect yourself in terms of limited liability. There's limited liability by shares and there's limited liability by guarantee.
Now I'm sure our viewers are wondering, what is the difference? By shares, by guarantee. Can you explain?
Awesome. So limited liability by shares. The minute you incorporate a company, you are given shares. This does not mean you have to pay all this money at this particular instance. You could pay it in the future. And then in the event the company is being wound up, when they say limited by shares, is to the extent of unpaid shares that you have not paid. So that is limited by shares. You promise to pay in the future, but you have not finished paying. So when the company is being wound up, you will be required to pay this remaining amount. So that is limited by shares. Now, limited by guarantee, this is mostly for charitable institutions. What happens? You want to limit in the event that the company is wound up and you have loans, you are promising to pay a certain amount. So it is limited by guarantee. The major difference is when you're registering a company limited by guarantee is it has to go through the approval of the NIS. So it is not just a normal one, specifically because they want to make sure you're not going into money laundering, you're not funding terrorist activities, etc., because it's mostly for charitable institutions. So in summary, at least we have seen limited by shares and limited by guarantee.
And the fourth one was what she has talked about, a company. So companies can come in two. There's a public company and there's a private limited company. So a private company is whereby the company does not open its shareholding abilities to the public. That means it doesn't welcome the public to buy shares into the company. However, a public company, for instance, say Safaricom or any other company you know where you have probably even bought shares, some of the banks are also listed as public companies. So that's a public company. Now, we also talked about the advantages and disadvantages of registering in any of the four ways. We've mentioned four, right? In any of the four ways. So 3 ways, in any of the 3 ways. So we talked about having a sole proprietorship. It's easy to register. It's also easy to bring to an end because it's just you deciding one day, nimemalizana hii biashara, I'm packing my things, I'm going, and then you go and re-register. Because remember, you registered it as a business. Mama something company, or as someone said, even an advocate's firm, so-and-so company advocates, you registered it. So you have to de-register it. The second one is the partnerships. It's also easy to form. And the good thing about partnerships as opposed to the sole proprietorship is you're many of you. So you share the profits and you also share the losses. When it comes to making decisions, you don't make those decisions alone. You're many. Now, the other thing about the public, now we can bring in the limited liability partnerships, is the fact that your liability is limited, what she talked about. That's a very important thing, particularly depending on the kind of business you're running. You can have a business that maybe you're not ready to register it as a company, but you still need to be protected in terms of having the business separate, like a separate legal entity from yourself. That means if the business goes in debt, see where you're in debt, it's the business. So it's not you who's bankrupt, it's the business that has become insolvent, meaning it cannot carry out its businesses anymore. When you balance the assets and the liabilities are more than the assets. So you probably have to sell the assets of the partnership. But when they are done and you still have creditors, wenye bado haujalipa, they won't come for you personally. Wanok kwa mlango yako aseme, we are coming for you. No, inaishanga tu hapo. And then finally we have the company. So maybe you could tell us a bit on the benefits of having a company versus, or registering your business as a company versus all the others.
I think that you've mentioned, because you have talked about liability. When it comes to companies, it is a separate legal entity. It is considered as a separate natural person. So umeongea kuhusu liability or loans that you're paying. The beauty about having a company is if the loans are more than the amount you're making, the creditors rather will not come after you. They will stop to the extent of the company and the monies that are in the company. And I think you've also mentioned something very important. Most people who have sole proprietorships usually say wakili smart and co-advocates. Please note that the fact that you have used co, meaning for company, does not make your business a company. You have to register it as a company for you to enjoy the benefits of a company. Even if it is a limited liability partnership, it does not make it a company. So it is very separate.
Another advantage of registering as a company is particularly when you plan, say there's a foreign company elsewhere, and you plan on bringing that business here in Kenya. There are two ways. There's one, a branch of that company, and then the second way is a subsidiary company. That means it's separate from that other company, but it can be owned by that other company. So it gives that company a chance to be and take part in the economy of this particular country, even though it's based or incorporated elsewhere. And maybe just to touch a bit on how to incorporate a foreign company here, there are several requirements that you need. Of course, you need details of the company that is incorporated elsewhere. In the event it's a non-English speaking country, you need to have certified documents that are translated in English, brought here and presented to the registrar of companies. You also need the details of the directors of that particular company. You also need the physical addresses, basically all the details of those who direct and manage that particular company. And then now you need the physical address of where you intend to set up business here in Kenya. You need the details of the person who's from Kenya. That's the, what would you call the representative, the local representative of that particular company here in Kenya. I don't know if there's anything else you can add on to that.
I think you've done an excellent job. Maybe what I can just add is the tax implications for foreign companies. Mm-hmm. So there's sort of double taxation where you need to pay tax both in Kenya as well as in the foreign country where you registered the initial plan. You talked about a subsidiary and a foreign branch in Kenya. The difference is, in terms of tax, it is higher when it is the branch in Kenya as opposed to having a subsidiary. So if you want to save your coins, register subsidiary. But of course, it depends with the nature of the transaction and the company.
Exactly. And speaking of tax, maybe we can touch on that aspect. When you do register as a partnership, particularly a general partnership, you avoid double taxation. You're not taxed as a director would be taxed. A director is taxed as the person, and then as they still remit tax as the company. However, as a partner in a general partnership, you are taxed once. And the good thing is you can also include the losses you've undergone in a partnership and deduct them from your taxes. So that's one good thing when you're probably considering how to register your business.
So I think you also touched on how you can dissolve a partnership, you can dissolve a business or a sole proprietorship. So now the next thing I can touch briefly on how to dissolve a company. So when it comes to dissolving a company, there are two ways you can dissolve it. You can dissolve it through the Insolvency Act, or you can just make an application. The process has a system of checks to ensure that hautoroki na pesa ya watu, meaning you have actually paid your employees if you're closing up or you're closing business. When you're applying to the registrar, this is where you don't necessarily owe people money, so you just apply to the registrar. Then the registrar for companies, what they will do, they will ensure that yes, you're in compliance, and then they will make a gazette notice. After the gazette notice, the expiry of the gazette notice, usually around 60 days. After the expiry of the gazette notice, then if no one is objecting to it, they're inviting the public to object. If no one objects to it, then it is removed or it is struck off from the roll of companies. If you are applying via the Insolvency Act, it means you still have liabilities, you still have employees you have not paid. So in this process, you'll have to apply through the office of the official receiver who sits at the Attorney General's office. Then after that, now your company will be dissolved and it will no longer be a legal entity.
I don't know which one you'd take, but always consider, of course, starting up a company, it has more paperwork, a lot of stories regarding tax, as opposed to the others, but also it determines the nature of your business and how you'd like people to perceive your business as well. So consider all those things, whether you're going to open it in a different country, make all those considerations before you open up.
Just to add something, most people usually complain on Asema, oh, I can't afford to get a lawyer, they're expensive. I can't afford to get an auditor, they're expensive. But remember, everything has a cost. So you bear the cost now, or you'll bear the cost later. So we usually recommend hire professionals, hire a lawyer. So maybe we can explain what is the role of a lawyer when it comes to registration of a company. Ideally, you mentioned that you can have an article of association or a memorandum of association. So maybe just explain to the people, what does it mean to have an article or a memorandum of association?
So articles of association is basically the rules governing the operations of that company. So usually, aside from, I think, banking institutions, all the other institutions or other types of businesses, there's a ready-made articles of associations for you. However, when you do solicit the services of an advocate, what happens is they get to look at the nature of your business, and because they know several things regarding that particular business when it comes to the law, they write down or they draft articles of association best suited for your business. It is easy to register your company on BRS. That's found at eCitizen. You can head on there and open up an account. However, it's always good to use the services of an advocate because it makes your work easier. What you can't see when you're opening, that advocate can see 10 years down the line what you will need. So it's good always to hire their services.
Yeah. Not only advocates as well, you can also get
auditors.
Yeah. We need auditors at the end of the day because remember, you want to be tax compliant. You don't want your business is making millions and then KRA is knocking your
knock, and they'll wait probably.
And then
I don't know.
All your millions. Imagine
they will wait until you have millions.
Yeah.
And they ask you to pay up. So you really don't need all that. It might cost you some coins, but in everything where you need the services of an advocate, please do get them. And
a smart way, if you cannot afford an advocate, there's a way you can enter into an arrangement through a company. It's very strategic. Have them as directors of your company. So remember, directors, these are people who are appointed by shareholders. Shareholders are the people who own the company. You come together, we changa money, and then we create a company. So these owners are called shareholders. But the shareholders would not be interested in the day-to-day management of a company. So they appoint people through voting. And they vote these people known as directors.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they help with directing the company.
And they come and form what we call a board of directors. Now, this is a board of minds that have educated themselves in specific fields. And there's nothing better than having that on your side when you have a company. So you can do that as well. And they can get remuneration for their work done. And they're also directors of that company. So it's in their best interest that the company succeeds. So that's another way of getting those services for yourself. Yeah. Awesome. And I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you guys learned something and you enjoyed. Please remember to share, like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to click on that bell so that anytime we have a new episode, you get notified. I think that's all for today. Until next time, stay safe. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Stay informed.